Welcome, you guys, to the Quantum Leap. I'm so freaking pumped. I'm so freaking pumped. And our session tonight is literally, it's kind of like starting at the end. And then, yeah, it's starting at the end. Like, this is something that I originally intended to be the very last session that we had, would be like actually planning and executing the leaving of the workplace. And then I think probably the program manager in me is like, wait a second, let's start with the end goal and let's talk about what that looks like and use that as the basis for our beginning, which is really beautiful. And it's actually something I didn't do that I think had I done, I would have quit my job probably 6 months ago. So just a fun tidbit. I do want to say, welcome again. Your course logistics will all be shared out after the session. So, and I can maybe, depending on the time that we have, I'll walk you guys through the Mighty Networks portal, which is basically community.thecorpsepsychic.com. None of you have yet been added to the course, but there is a course portal called the Quantum Leap. And so if you are a member of the community, which I think all of you guys are, I think I saw all of you guys joining, if you weren't already, you will get an invitation through the community, and then you'll just see the course in your courses list, and you'll go in there, and like the recordings will all be there. All of the sessions are in there, as well as events, so you'll see them for the next like 5 weeks. And then I think Kate sent out today like all of the invitations for all of the sessions for the whole rest of the course. I'll talk about the sessions at the very end as well, so I'll kind of like walk through like when we're going to meet, what that will look like, what all of our topics will be. The topics are all set, but there's some wiggle room because this is all based on you, right? Like, you guys are all the ones here. This is about really like, I want to make the course what is going to work for you and tailored really to what you guys have questions about, what you guys are thinking about, what you need. Literally, like, bring anything and everything forward. If you're already started a business and you're like, I'm working on these particular things and I'm not sure what to do, or I have these offerings and I don't know what to do, or I'm having this problem at work right now, let's talk about it. Like, please know that you don't have to come with questions that are related to the topics. Come with everything and anything, whether they're related or not related. Like, it's all integrated, it all integrates. And I fully believe that every single time we come together, we're going to talk about exactly what it is that we're meant to talk about. So don't hesitate to bring anything forward. And I also will encourage you guys to speak, like, come off of mute. I love that everyone's on video. If you feel your voice rising up in your throat, like you want to say something, let it out. This is such a safe space. I'm so happy to listen and hold space and take it in, even if it feels like completely irrelevant, but you feel that like urge to say something, just like come off mute and say it. Like, even if I'm talking, it's totally fine. I'm really happy for that. And or just like add things to the chat, be active in the chat if you like. But again, this is all for you. It's like I've done all of this now, right? Like, I have a lot of learnings to share, but it's not about me, it's about you and what you guys are going to get out of this. And so come with anything and everything. I want to talk about it. And then back to the course itself and the course portal. So you guys will go there, all of the replays will live there, and then any tangible resources as well. And so today I'm going to drop the slides in there, I'll drop the replay in there, and then I'll also drop in just a couple of things that helped me that we'll talk about today, but I don't have a lot of slides. And so I'll drop in a couple of like worksheets and things like that. All of them are just like opportunities and options. You don't have to do any of it, right? But anything that resonates or anything that you're like, oh, that's really cool, I want to think about that, or I want to do that, then by all means do it. But again, there's no pressure at all to do any of this at all. It's, again, whatever it works for you. And I'm always going to be happy for that. And then we'll talk about logistics as well toward the end, again, when it comes to things like sessions, WhatsApp group, accountability pods, which is not necessarily for accountability, more for connection, and like accountability to authentic self, not necessarily accountability to productivity. Because a lot of the things that we'll talk about in the next 5 weeks, but even today, are going to come with an underlying current of like less is more, and we don't have to put forth so much effort. I fully believe this. And I think productivity is not like our end all be all, right? It's not about how productive we are. It's not about what we're putting out. It's not about our deliverables. It's not how much we're doing. And I really want to hold space to nourish that. And in our accountability together in small groups, that's not what I want to be pushing everyone for, is like do more, get stuff out, like have offerings, like services, like whatever that is, from experience. And then just also from now learning more deeply experience and realizing that's not the thing to value above all else, right? Like, that's not the thing that's going to bring us freedom. Which is one of those things, by the way, that almost every single one of you in your forums said that you wanted when it came to creating your own business, is like freedom of some sort, or spaciousness of some sort, or like financial freedom, or ease and flow. Like that was a really big theme as well. And so I don't believe that we get ease and flow by like going balls out all the time, right? So we'll talk about that more. I'm kind of going off topic a little bit. And then this is like it. I'm actually going to stop sharing my slides in just a second and just kind of talk with you guys. But today, our big, the things that we're going to talk about in thinking about planning and executing your 9 to 5 exit and thinking about growing your business is all focused around safety, nourishment, inertia. Like this is like a huge, huge thing, huge like root of really where I want everyone to maybe like aim or hold in their heart. And then just like general tips, we're going to talk through that. And then we'll circle back to logistics. Yep, that's it. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that I can see you all, and open my chat up so that I have this as well. Feel free to pop into the chat. But again, we're a small group tonight. So just like, even if we're a big group, when we're a big group, like just unmute and speak. I'm super happy to have that. And then my notes are kind of over here. So just know if I'm looking this way, it's because I'm checking out my notes. Yeah, so I want to just kind of start by saying, I said this already, it doesn't have to be hard. I want to really hold the space for and root down in the entire quantum leap, and in any kind of quantum leap, I want to root down in like calmness, in clearness, in effortlessness, and in like nourishment. And so I really want to emphasize that while the terminology is like side hustle, right? Because your side hustle has officially popped off. I know not all of you guys, by the way, are like in 9 to 5s and doing your jobs. So there's that, which is beautiful and great. Totally still applicable. And like, I would even say more so applicable, especially since like after leaving my job or spending time not working, I want to hustle even more. Like when I was working my 9 to 5 and doing my business, it was easy to just to really prioritize what was important to me and really prioritize what moved the needle. Coming out of that, it's so easy to just like replace one thing with another thing, right? Like replace your job with another job. And like that is not why we go into business. We don't go into business to replace our 9 to 5s that are like sucking our souls away with like another thing that's going to suck our souls away, because we end up working it the same way we worked in 9 to 5, right? Like that's not why we're doing what we're doing. And that's ultimately not what's going to make us feel free. And so I really, even though the terminology is side hustle and there's the word hustles in there, I really want to root us down into it doesn't have to be a hustle. It doesn't have to be that much effort. And we'll talk a lot about that throughout the entire next 5 weeks, but it's something I definitely want to root us in. And then I just want to say, whatever you want, it's all possible. And then especially looking at everyone's intake forms of just like wanting more ease and wanting more flow and wanting more freedom. All of these, it was so beautiful reading all of this, and then wanting to be of service. Like that was another really big theme, serving other people, wanting to feel fulfilled. Somebody mentioned wanting to like sleep 8 hours a night again and like eat good food. And I was like, oh my God, basic needs, right? Like basic needs. Like I want to say all of this is possible, and so much beyond that is possible as well, right? Like, we'll start with the basic needs, like we'll prioritize that maybe first, but like everything that we want is possible. And then there's so much out there that's like further than what we could have imagined, right? So I want to just keep everyone open to that. Okay, yeah. So let's like, so, and then everyone here, I don't know if you guys are trying to quit your jobs or not. I remember when I started TCP, I was, so just a little bit of history on me, like very, very light. I remember when I started working after college, I already knew that I wasn't like into the 9 to 5 world. And I was like, I need to get out of this, but I don't know what I want to do. And I had no money and I had lots of student loans, and I just like had no skills because I studied philosophy. And so I was like, I guess I'm just stuck in this like 9 to 5 thing. And I was just happy to take literally anything I could get. And then as I moved into Microsoft, I really struggled for my first couple of years there because I couldn't find my place. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to do something outside of that. I always knew I wanted to be my own boss. But then I also had all these limiting beliefs around businesses. Like I thought that, you have to work all the time and like you have to have people working for you. And like I just didn't have this idea that I could be my own boss and live the type of life that I wanted to live. I never imagined myself being a business owner. Absolutely would have been laughing at you a year and a half ago if you told me I'd be coaching. Like literally would be on the ground laughing, especially like a year and a half, 2 years ago, if they were like, people would be like, oh, you're going to be like giving tarot readings and Akashic Records readings. I would be like, you guys are crazy. but, um, but here I am and I'm so happy for it. Um, but I say all of this because I fluctuated between really wanting to get out of the corporate world to like really loving and enjoying and embracing the corporate world to realizing the importance of integrating all parts of self and realizing that corporate is actually a massive part of the world that we live in today. And so it's like, how do we integrate that into our own beings? And then how do we integrate all of these parts of ourselves? Because I know for me, like every time I learned something new about myself or found a new skill, I had this conflict of, do I quit my job and like go all in on this thing? Like when I did my first yoga teacher training, actually it was my second yoga teacher training. My first one was kind of like, oh, I'm deepening my yoga practice. And I think I knew that it wasn't going to pay my bills at that time. And then my second yoga teacher training, I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. Should I quit my job? And I had this whole conflict. And then as I started traveling and meeting people who were traveling and just living the digital nomad lifestyle, same thing. I was just like, saw the possibility, but I didn't really know yet if it was right for me. And I had this conflict of, do I quit my job? And then as I learned that I was interested in different things, I was like, I bet if I devoted myself, I could just do this, right? Like, what would that look like? And every single time it didn't quite feel right. And so I want to share that with you because I think there's just so much like one power and beauty and like the flow, the ebb and the flow of what we want and what we need in different times and allowing ourselves to honor that. And I do believe like there's a right time for everything, right? Like the aligned timing is totally a thing. And so that's partially why I think coming out of TQL, I don't want anyone to just be like, I'm quitting my job. I mean, if it feels really good, I want you to do that, right? Like if it's a full body, yes, I want you to do that. But the reason that we're going to talk about safety first tonight, safety first is kind of funny, is because I think safety is like such an underrated topic. It's such an underrated theme. It's such an underrated feeling, especially in the coaching space, in the personal development space, in like the spiritual space. I think a lot of times there's just this aversion to the things that may or may not be serving us. And there's like this quickness to write off what doesn't feel like is serving us instead of figuring out like maybe how we can make what our situations are work for us, right? Like there's this aversion of like, oh, it's not serving me, I got to cut that off and like move into this other thing. And oftentimes that translates to my 9 to 5 is sucking my soul, I need to quit that and just like be on my own and I'll figure it out. But in truth, what tends to happen, and I don't want to paint like this terrible picture at all, because so many people figure it out, and actually everyone figures it out. We all figure it out, and it's great. But often, what can happen is when we move in this energy of "fuck it, I'm going to quit my job," but we don't feel fully prepared, our bodies and our nervous systems don't feel safe, and then that like I think Kira mentioned it causes us to move from a place of maybe scarcity as opposed to abundance. And it causes us to move from a place of desperation as opposed to joy, right? And I said this already, but I'll say it again and probably like 100 times in the next 5 weeks of just like, we go into business and we dedicate our lives to our passions and to the things that we want because we can, because we get to, because it's fun, because it offers us freedom and ease and flow. We don't quit our jobs to have a business so that we're like slaving at our businesses to make a bunch of money. And so this is something I really, really want to drill down with you all, because fuck it energy or desperate energy is very, very different from intentional energy, calm energy, forward moving energy, because we choose it, right? Because we have a choice, because we realize we have a choice, because we want it, because it's very freeing. And so I want to just take a couple moments, all of us just close our eyes for a minute. And I want you guys to all imagine putting your 2 weeks notice in like tomorrow. I want you to think about how it would feel in your body if you walked into your boss's office or like pinged them online or whatever the situation is and you said, I'm out, this is my 2 weeks notice, in the exact situation you're in. So like without having a plan, or maybe you do have a plan, with having a loose business, like how does that feel? And then I just want you to type a couple words in the chat for like what comes up in your body, how your body feels, um, the emotions that might kind of run through you. Ooh, guilty. Throbbing in my head. Okay, yeah. Liberation. Oh, yes. And then fear. Yeah. Panic in the chest. Oh, yeah. Mm. Yeah, and I will say fear and then just closed off. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I will say, okay, hold on. Before I say anything, let's close our eyes again. And I want you to imagine yourselves in 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 years, whenever that time is, into the future. And I want you to imagine having already set up a sustainable practice where you have income flowing in and you get to choose whether or not you want to be at your work and putting your 2 weeks notice in at that point. And knowing that you feel really nourished, how does that feel in your body? And same thing, go ahead and type that into the chat.
Can I come off mute and talk
Of
about?
course, yes, please.
I had major mixed feelings about that because I feel like where I'm stuck is that bridge that's going to get me.
Mm,
So like it was hard to even imagine that. And then I
oh,
caught myself thinking, but if I can get, my app that is very low effort for me now, it wasn't at the beginning,
mhm,
but if I can get that, then I will be able to free up time to see more
mhm.
clients. And immediately I got, this is not the way.
Mm,
This is me trying to figure out the
yes,
way.
mhm. Oh, this is good. This is good. We're gonna talk about this, Ginny. This
I
is
knew you
really
would
good.
like that.
Um, yeah, this is really good. Um, this is actually so this is a huge basis for what we're really going to be talking about in planning our 9 to 5 exit tonight, by the way, you guys. So today is like one of our more tangible sessions of all of the sessions. And by that, I mean, like, we're going to very prescriptively talk about how we plan our exit based on like what it is that we know we want. Um, in also illuminating a how, but like a huge part of that is going to be letting go of the actual how and like the building of the how and the rigidity that comes with the how. Because I think um I'll say this again in just a bit, but oftentimes, like, it takes us seeing a way for us to believe that it's possible and to be inspired. But seeing a way does not mean that one way is the only way. And this is really, really, I think, important. And so being able to like see the possibility, but then like let go of it completely is like such a key and underrated um, pathway to success and necessary, I think, pathway to like wild success, we could say. But really quick, so coming back to this, so I see, so Hannah said nausea, heart racing, but also excitement, like when you're about to get on a roller coaster, rock climbing or something. Yep, it's like that roller coaster feeling is so good. And then in thinking about, in the future, feeling sustained and nourished, the feeling calm, way more excitement, so a little guilt. We're going to talk about guilt tonight too. And we're definitely going to talk about guilt a lot throughout the next 5 weeks because this is a huge, it's really, like I said this before we started recording and before everyone was here too, but it's very fascinating how when we allow ourselves to have the things that we want, and then one, that's just uncomfortable and it's hard, it's challenging to just let ourselves have what we want. But then on top of that, to let ourselves have what we want and like allow that to be easy is a whole other thing, right? Like it's one thing to work really hard for the thing you want and then you don't feel as guilty about it because you're like, I fucking worked for that. But to just like get what you want without even asking for it, that is like next level uncomfort. And then it's also next level uncomfortable because like and this is totally projections probably of ourself and then also of other people, but like other people like have things to say about that, right? Like, oh, it must be nice, right? And then it adds to the guilt and it compounds because you're like, oh, we're told that we can't just have what we want. It can't just be easy. It can't be effortless. Meanwhile, we all want it to be easy and we want it to be effortless, right? But then we don't let ourselves have it. We don't embody those things. So we'll come back to that, but guilt is really, really good. Excitement, also security, free and safe. The team guilt, yep. And so I want to say this because I said this already. So safety is underrated, right? Allowing the body and the nervous system to feel safe to expand. It is fucking unrated. Underrated, not unrated, underrated. It is again, I think we live in this culture of productivity, and then we also live in this culture of we need to do X to get Y. So, like, again, we can't just have what we want, but we have to do something to get what we want. Like, that's like a deeply rooted story in our society. And then also in the personal development space, period, the spiritual space, personal development space, you have to take action to get something, right? You have to do something to get something. You can't just get it, right? It doesn't just happen. And while I do absolutely agree and believe that like the things that you want are not going to just fall in your lap, especially if you're like watching Netflix every day for 12 months, like you're probably not going to just like stumble into your dream life. So of course there's action that's required. And how can we do this and allow ourselves to have the things that we want and need and require without it being so much costing us so much effort? How can we do that while feeling safe? And by that I mean um quitting our job. And the reason I use, like, if you put in your tweaks tomorrow versus like a year from now, and you imagine yourself being fully sustained, like those different feelings, I say that because it's a really good, quick, easy example of um the pressure that we feel sometimes to do the thing that makes us uncomfortable so that we can grow through it. Because so often that's what we're taught, especially in the personal development space. Like, I don't know if any of you guys have had a coach that's like, do something that makes you uncomfortable. I'm sure I've said this to probably some of you that are here right now, right? Like, do the thing that's scary, do the thing that makes you uncomfortable. Even if it doesn't feel good, do it. Like, it's such a thing that we say and we perpetuate. And yet, I think when it comes to making really big life decisions, we don't always have to do that. And like allowing ourselves to feel safe, again, is underrated. We don't value that enough. And whenever we can move from a place of safety, we can move forward intentionally. We can move forward more happily, more easefully, more restfully. And oftentimes we get so much more back from that. I don't even know if this is totally related, but it's kind of coming up now. Yesterday I was talking to Soul and Rita, two just like amazing people that you guys have probably heard me reference quite a lot if you follow me on social media. So Soul is the owner of Dawning Digital. Her company did all of my brand work, and Rita is one of my mentors. And the three of us are working together on a course, and we were talking about taking a class on speaking and on voice and how we present ourselves. We were all kind of kicking this around, and Soul said that she learned this tip of speaking on the exhale versus speaking on the inhale, and how differently that lands in other people's bodies, but also how much more easily that comes out of our being. And what's fascinating is last night, I was playing chess with Emerson, my partner, and in the first game I just was like playing and I wasn't super like mindful or intentional. And the second game, like for whatever reason, this concept of on the exhale came into my mind, and I literally didn't make any moves unless I was on the exhale, and I didn't think about what my moves were going to be unless I was on the exhale. And what's fascinating is in game one I was thinking 3 to 5 moves ahead every single step. Game two I was thinking about only the present move, but I just moved on the exhale and I won in game two. And he's really good, by the way. I didn't tell him that this was my secret. maybe, or maybe not. You can hear me right now. But I say this because a lot of what we'll talk about in the next 5 weeks is about letting go of the strategy and coming back into the present moment. And I do think a lot of that comes from moving on the exhale, right? Coming back to safety in the body, allowing ourselves the safetiness to exhale, and then to expand and inhale again in safety, in calm nervous system, in clear action, as opposed to hasty, as opposed to desperate, as opposed to fuck it, as opposed to I want this right now, so I'm going to do this, without really like allowing ourselves to feel through anything, as opposed to on the inhale, right? Like soaking it all in. And then as opposed to in strategy as well, because which is funny because we're going to talk about tangibly how we like get to the end, which is strategic, but it's also like this balance of how can we allow ourselves the strategy and the seeing of the how, but be rooted in the present and be rooted again on the exhale and allowing that to guide us, knowing that we are going to take the exact next right step that we need to. And it doesn't have to be fuck it. It doesn't have to be unintentional. It doesn't have to be out of desperation. And we absolutely don't want it to be because we feel like there's never another choice. There's always another choice, right? Like we always have a choice. And then I do also want to say, because there's a lot of hype around quitting your job and going all in on yourself, there are two things. I think when there's little clarity about what it is that you want in your business, in your life, it's not, it can be a dangerous thing to just make a really quick and rash decision. And this is why I say at the end of TQL, I don't want anyone to be like, fuck it, I'm quitting my job, I'm so inspired. Inspiration's great, but it gets you so far, right? Like I want everyone to, like, again, if you're putting your 2 weeks in, amazing, do it on your Excel. Inhale, put your 2 weeks in on your Excel. That's like my biggest note to you guys. But then the other thing is, which we'll talk about this a little bit today, but a lot in the next 5 weeks, is simply that just because you don't quit your job today, tomorrow, next week, next month, even next year, doesn't mean you're not going all in on yourself. So there's this idea of going all in on ourselves means we're investing a lot of money in ourselves. We're doing all this personal development. We're constantly learning and growing. And we're quitting our jobs and spending all of our time on us and reflecting and focusing on what we want, only doing the things that we want. When I think going all in on ourselves is really the same thing as just self-care, but basic self-care, not like me on my birthday self-care being like, I'm going to eat the donut and 5 cookies, but the self-care of, I'm going to wake up when my body allows me to wake up, and I'm going to get to know myself again, and I'm going to eat well, maybe not what other people are telling me to eat, but what I know I need to eat, right? I'm going to do the things that I need to do every single day, not because I feel like it, but I'm going to do it even when I don't feel like it, right? Like that's real self-care. It's not taking a bath and eating the chocolate, which sometimes self-care is taking a bath and eating the chocolate, and it is giving ourselves that break. But for the most part, that's not actually what it is. And the same thing is true of going all in on yourself. It's not just like quitting your job and becoming a bartender so that you can make ends meet while you have more time to focus on yourself, because you're probably, if you don't have enough time to focus on yourself now, that's probably not going to change. So I would say going all in yourself in that situation maybe isn't quitting your job, but it's like reclaiming your time. And maybe that doesn't mean you invest in, a 6-figure coach or course. I say this as a coach, right? Like maybe that doesn't mean you invest in having a coach, but maybe it means you invest in that, like 1 hour after work to go to yoga, or 1 hour after work to sit home by yourself, or, maybe it means you invest in some other area or thing or space that you need and require. And you're doing it for you. And that's going all in on yourself. Or maybe it's taking an hour a day extra to work on your business, or whatever that thing is. Or maybe it's just like practicing showing up authentically at work, right? So just know that going all in on self doesn't mean you're like dropping thousands of dollars on a coach or on a new class or on the next thing or starting the next business, or I don't know, even dropping a ton of money on like your brand or your website, which we'll talk about this month too. And but it's really just doing the thing that you need. It's just doing the thing that that's right for you. And that can absolutely be in your 9 to 5. And it might actually even be figuring out how your 9 to 5 supports what you need and what you want, right? Like a lot of what makes us happy isn't leaving behind everything and starting new, but it's figuring out how we can use the things that we have to get the things that we want. And then slowly the things that we don't want just like fall off of our plates, right? Like I think about when I first decided to go vegan, vegetarian, I didn't just like quit eating meat actually. And I didn't just like quit eating. And even now when I'm like trying to clean my diet up and like not eat so processed, I don't just like cut everything out that I don't want. I actually just add a little bit more of what I do want. And so like I'll just throw a little bit extra greens on my plate, and then like a little bit extra greens again on my plate, until eventually my plate is full of all veggies and like the other stuff is just gone because there's not room for it. But like I think if we think about expanding in that way as opposed to just like cutting out what's not working for us, we restrict ourselves and then we contract as well, right? And so when we think about the quantum leap and we think about executing our exit from the 9 to 5, I want to think about it in that same way of how can I keep expanding in the spaces that I want so much that there's just not room for my job anymore. like so much that you're like, oh shit, now I'm making 100K a year doing this, and I don't have time to show up at work, or I haven't been like that's part of what happened to me at Microsoft. I just honestly could no longer show up 100%, and I had this big conflict of integrity where I was like, wow, I know I'm getting paid, but I'm not doing the work that I'm getting paid to do anymore because I don't have the capacity anymore to do that. And so it's like, how can we expand in the areas we want to so much that the things that we no longer want or need are serving us just fall away easy, right? Without making that, without having that like huge conflict of choice, that huge like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm jumping off of a cliff, but just like, oh, this is the natural progression of where I'm going because it's what I want and it makes sense and I'm there, right? Like that's my goal for everyone. Um, let's see.
Can I ask a question around that?
Of course, yes.
And maybe probably this is going to come up in the next few weeks. And I think this is also, I've heard from what Jenny said before a little bit of what I'm probably going to ask is, so right now I'm more in the space of where I don't know how to put more energy into the side hustle than the corporate job, because the corporate job sucks out so much energy that
Mm-hmm.
on the time that I'm not in my corporate job, I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to put my energy into this now? So how do I flip this before, like, so
Yeah.
that I can then make that that move that you just described, right?
Oh, this is such a good question. I have like chills actually even hearing it. And so I would say, one, we are definitely going to dive into this like a lot more. But like, um, what comes forward first is almost like how can you think about doing less, but like making and bringing back more? And that's also part of the basic tenets of TQL and the quantum leap for me is like, how can you actually work less hours in your business and bring in more clients or more money? How can you put less effort in your business and like watch that expand? That's kind of like where I really want us to go, and like where we're really going to talk today, even about like the word inertia is like huge. Um, Jenny, like that might make it even harder to leave, right? It's like when you're like, oh shit, I can do all of these things. Maybe I should keep my job because there's like security there, right? But yeah, like I would say like really, and this is what helped me a lot. And this is actually what ultimately, ironically, this is what pushed me out of Microsoft. Was I was actually working with Shosh at the time, and she said this to me. She said, "Make your mantra: do less, make more." And I'm just gonna give this right back to you. Like, make it your mantra: do less, make more. And I truly did. I was like, how can I do less and make more? And how can I trust that whatever is in front of me in this present moment is the only thing I need to focus on? And if I give myself 100% to that thing that's in front of me in the present moment, everything else is going to take care of itself. And it's very uncomfortable, by the way, because sometimes you do feel like there's just not enough hours in the day and there's not enough energy alongside all of the hours in the day. But if you can come back to like, how can I do less and make more? And then the other thing that I'll say, I wanted to add this to the tips, is like really focusing in on only what moves the needle. And so that goes back to like do less, make more. We'll talk about this with offerings, but it's really like, how can we focus in on, again, only the things that are going to provide a return or return on an investment, as opposed to focusing on doing all of the things, and as opposed to focusing on doing all of the things right. How can we just let go of the things that we don't even feel like doing? And that's a huge thing. Like if we don't have the energy for it, how do we just do we absolutely need it? Like, is it the thing that's actually going to move the needle in our work or in our business? If it's not, how can we just very uncomfortably but as easily as possible let it go for now? And come back to it when we do have the time and the energy. That's like one. The other thing I would say is anytime you're, because something that I came to realize, especially if you're doing like client work, and like Jenny, if you're doing client work and you're like, oh my God, I don't think I have time for client work, or I'm not sure how that feels. I would say make sure you're charging. This is also in the tips for later. Like, make sure you're charging the proper amount of money. So we're going to talk about this a bit as well, and we're definitely going to talk about this later. But I say this because it's so easy to so desperately want to be in the work of our business that we like give it to everyone for free, and or not a lot of money, and or we think about like what enough money to get by is, and that's what we charge, as opposed to like what would actually be nourishing. And this is like the first thing that we're really going to dive into actually in the next couple of minutes. But I what's fascinating is when I worked my 9 to 5 and had my business, my rates were pretty high. And for a new business owner as well, my rates were like extremely high. And part of that is because I had done a lot of consulting in tech in the past. And so I was used to just charging a high rate whenever I wasn't working for Microsoft. But really the main reason behind that was because I was like, it's not that I valued my time more then than I do now. It's more that I didn't have a lot of it. And I knew that I didn't have a lot of time. And because I didn't have a lot of time, it was worth a lot of money to me. And so I was kind of like, no matter how much I want to do this work, I actually don't want to do it at all unless I'm getting compensated quite a lot of money so that I can feel comfortable and at ease and safe and nourished in the work so that I could show up excited and like have the energy to do it. Whereas when I would do things for not a lot of money or for free, like when I first started my business, I did like hundreds of free readings just to kind of like get myself oriented, feel through even what I wanted to offer, how I wanted those to go. And there came a point in time where it didn't feel good anymore. And I actually just canceled the rest of them, like all of them. I was like, I'm so sorry. There's no more free readings. If you want to book a reading, this is where you can book it. When I do offer free readings again, I've added you to the list. I'll reach back out. And when you're ready, we'll do that. And now coming out of that, like shifting into, I work for myself now. And what's really ironic is I'm sustaining myself now financially. I have the desire to do more free work because it feels really good. And so now my focus is on like, how can I sustain myself and nourish myself enough so that I can do these other things and give back to the community in ways that I wasn't able to do before because I didn't have the time. Because now I have like time is just like infinite for me now. And so it's a different feeling. And so I've actually like lowered all of my rates because I don't need them to be super high anymore. And I don't feel like that's what's necessary for me to like be happy, to be nourished. And so even going off of your question, as we plan our 9 to 5 exit and departure, the very first question that I have for all of you is, what support do you need to leave your 9 to 5 or to start and grow your business? And then what conditions do you need to be in place for your body to feel safe to quit your job, to start your business, to go all in on you? And by that, I mean, and this is going to be different for everyone. I want you guys to think about this and like answer this really, really honestly with yourself. This is part of your homework this week, by the way. Not that there's actual homework that you have to do, but like something I would encourage you guys to meditate on is, what conditions do you need to be true for you to comfortably, safely leave your job, for you to put in your 2 weeks and feel calm and safe? Is that a certain amount of money? Is that a really deep understanding of how the back end processes are going to be? Is that a really deep understanding of how taxes are going to impact your income? Is that a full offerings list? Is that having enough clients? Is that saving X amount of dollars, right? Like what exactly, and all of these things are great to have, by the way. I'm sure like if I were listening to this, I'd be like, yeah, all of that. I need all of that to quit. But the truth is you actually don't. And it's different for everyone. And so I would say, like, what conditions do you require, like truly need so that you feel safe, so that it doesn't feel like you're jumping off a cliff? And then from there, like that's your financial goal, by the way. Like that's, or not that's like, those are the conditions, those are the goals. That's like goal number one. So like whatever the answers are to those questions or that question, I want you to just write that down and like put it on a post-it somewhere where you can see it every day while you're at your job. What conditions do you need? Is that just like you need your partner to pick up the kids every day from school? Is it that you need more help around the house? Like whatever it is it that you need more time and space for yourself? Is it that you need to switch teams so that you have like a different work environment? Like what conditions do you need so that you can feel really good about? Do you need your parents' approval, right? Like what things make you feel really good, calm and safe in putting in your notice today, or a year from now? And then just have those conditions in front of you so that you can tangibly start to work toward creating those conditions for yourself. Because if we don't even know what they are, right? Or if we don't have a number, so like financially, if like, let's say one of those conditions is I need to have enough money saved to survive for 6 to 9 months. Okay, great. What is that number that you need to have saved? Because oftentimes we have that in our mind, but we don't have the specifics. And when we don't have the specifics, it's impossible to feel safe. And it's also impossible to work toward that so that we can actually leave. So if you're like, oh, I need to survive for 6 to 9 months. Okay, like how much money do you need to survive for 6 to 9 months? And then on top of that, can you break that down in like a weekly budget or like a monthly budget, right? Because you might actually look at that and be like, oh shit, I actually already have that. I can quit my job, right? And if that's the case, I'm going to be like, yeah, quit your job, right? If that's the condition that you need, like, and you already meet that condition, then like the only thing holding you back is you. Or if that's the condition that you need and you realize like, oh my God, I'm so far away from that and I haven't been saving my money at all, then you know, okay, one of the things that I can focus on is saving my money, right? And that's going to get me closer to feeling comfortable to leave my job so that I can focus on me, or so I can focus on my business, or so I can have the space, right? Like that's like bar one. I think number two, um, kind of comes back to what I was just talking about when it comes to financials and having the energy to work with people. Is really just asking yourself, what do you actually need financially to nourish you in your own business to sustain yourself? And by that, I mean, not what's possible financially. By that, I mean, not what are you making right now today. I also don't mean what's the bare minimum that you can make for you to leave your job and survive. Like, that's absolutely not what I'm asking. I not even like what's possible, definitely not what other people are reporting out. I think especially in this space when it comes to like spiritual coaching, personal coaching, life coaching, not that we're all doing that. I know we're all doing very different things like side business wise, but um, I'm sure you've seen at least a little bit of the messaging around how much money people are making, right? And a lot of, I think, coaches, and I did this for a moment too, like I so got sucked into this, feel the need to share how much they're making because that draws people in because we're like, fuck, I want to make $1 million. So like, yeah, I'm going to do your program, right? Like, it's like, we're like, yeah, that's what I want. And I actually I challenge you all to say, it's okay to want that. Like I want $1 million, like for sure. Like that's something I'm working toward. Like I would say like for sure I'm working toward like massive financial goals, but at the same time, what do you actually need that would feel really nourishing for you to leave your job? And I can promise you it's probably not $1 million. Like what does your soul actually need and require? How much money a month would feel nourishing for you to leave your job? And again, it might not even be the amount of money you're making in your 9 to 5. I realized this, and this is partially why I lowered my prices because I was like, whoa, now that I have all the time and the space in the world, I don't actually need to be charging $500 an hour. like, like I can, and that's great. And like, I think it's beautiful, but like, I don't need it. Like, that's not what's actually nourishing me, right? Like, so maybe, and like, I definitely don't, like, I don't need in order to feel nourished to make as much as I made before. And I'm not saying that I'm not making as much as I made before, that I don't want to make as much as I made before, if not more than that, right? But it's like coming to this real realization of like, what do we actually need to nourish us? Because one, you might find that you're already doing that and that you're good and you can quit your job yesterday. Or two, you might find that you're not as far away as from that goal as you think you are. And like that's goal number one. You're not like, I need to make $1 million to leave my job and feel safe and secure. You're really like, oh, I just need to have $5,000 a month coming in to feel safe and secure. Or maybe it's $10,000 a month, or maybe it's $20,000 a month. Like, I don't know what would feel nourishing to you, what would feel really good, but just getting really honest with yourself about what would feel really nourishing for me so that when I do put my 2 weeks in, I know that I'm good. Like, I know that I'm going to be okay. And it's okay for me to want a lot more than that. And it's okay for me to work toward a lot more than that. And I would say, like, the possibilities are absolutely infinite. And like, the amount of money that you can make is also absolutely infinite. So, like, don't cap yourself anywhere, but just be really clear and honest about what would nourish you and what would feel really good. And then that's where you want to set your goal and your bar. Because again, we can always be chasing like the next thing and the next number and the next metric. And this is actually what happens when you really start making money. Like, I got so sucked into that for a moment of just like metrics. Like, oh my God, this is how many, like, this is what sales are, and this is what things are looking like. And oh my God, I need to do this other offering, and I need to like move into this next thing. And I realized like all of that's great, but also like what's sustainable and what feels really good, and like what's most important to me right now. Like, what is my soul asking for? What's required? And it's really what a lot of you guys said on your intake forms: freedom. Like, that's really all that I want is freedom. And so it's like knowing that and seeing like where and how I already have that, then it's like everything else is extra, right? Like everything else is just like, oh my God, thank you, universe, this is amazing. So then you operate from a completely different place, which allows you to grow and expand so much more as opposed to constantly chasing that next goal and thing. But once you have like a tangible goal of like X dollars a month would be really nourishing, then that's what we work back towards, right? Like that's what we aim for. And that like helps us get where we need to go. Once we have this, so like, let's say we know, like, in theory, let's say $5,000 a month feels really nourishing and would fully support us in a way that would allow us to do the work that we wanted, allow us to take our time back. Maybe we're working just one day a week and we're feeling really good about that, right? Mapping out one possible way to get to that nourishing amount a month is like all that I ask of you. And I say one possible way because there's an infinite number of ways. So like if you're let's say you have an art business, you're an artist, and like your goal is $5,000 a month. How could you make $5,000 a month? Like what would make that possible, right? Like maybe it's you sell, I don't know, 4 pieces, or maybe 5 pieces, right? Like maybe you sell 5 pieces a month. Or maybe it's you sell 20 small pieces a month, right? But just like knowing tangibly, okay, if I want to make X dollars, this is one way that it's possible. Doesn't have to be all the ways, but just one way. And I say this because sometimes whenever you just see one possibility, one route, so even Jenny's example of her app, right? Like knowing that that's not the way, but like her even just seeing that there's a possibility for her to bring in passive income while she's working and enough passive income for her to quit her job, that's going to be like the inspiration enough to allow you to quit your job. Like maybe that's not the way, but there is another way, right? Like, there are hundreds of thousands of ways to get to the things that we want. And so part of like really feeling empowered is seeing like, oh shit, the thing that I want is actually really possible. So like maybe you're practicing like hypnotherapy and you need like, I don't know, to do 20 calls a month to make X dollars a month, right? Once you say it that way, you're like, oh, that's really not that bad. When you have a 9 to 5 and 20 calls equals 20 hours, like then it might be a little different, right? Like, so then we have to think about, okay, how do we do that? Maybe we need to only have 10 calls because our time is really valuable. And maybe we need to double our rate because that's just what we require because we just don't have the time, right? And like, maybe we can reevaluate our rates once we quit. But again, it's like, how do we, there you go, Jenny. You're set then. Okay, yeah. So this is so good. So JC said, when I'm coming up with a number, for some reason, I feel like it has to be more than what I make in my job now. Like that helps you justify quitting. So what I would say is, this is so good. And I feel this so much because I felt that as well. I remember actually when I really truly started thinking about quitting Microsoft, because when I started TCP, quitting Microsoft wasn't even on the table for me. And when I first started thinking about quitting Microsoft, I think I said something like, if I make $50,000 by February, I'll quit. Like that's what I told myself, like in November, I think I said that. And like I was like, that's what I need, right? And I think that was just me like declaring to the universe that like I'm ready for this, but I'm only ready for this if like this shit's really happening, right? Like I think that's what I was trying to say. But especially now, kind of looking back on everything and then looking forward on everything, what I would say is if you can really sit with yourself and ask yourself, what do you really need? And like, what is your job? Like, I would challenge that. Like, why do you need to make more than your job now? And I say this because like, what if you can make $10,000 less a year than you make in your job, but you only work 2 days a week? Whereas like maybe in your job right now, you're working for 12-hour shifts a week, right? Or maybe you're working even more than that. And so like if freedom is the thing that you actually need, maybe you don't need quite as much money if you have more time. And then if you have more time, you can even use that to like supplement making even more money or like expanding into the spaces that you really want to expand. And also I would say in coming up with your nourishing number, I am 100% inviting you all this week to look at your budgets and like what you spend money on and like what really matters to you. And by that, I mean, it's completely okay to be like, I don't want to compromise my lifestyle in any way, shape, or form. I said the same exact thing. I didn't want to compromise my lifestyle in any way, shape, or form. I just bought a beach house in September, an oceanfront house. And I was like, I sure as hell, like, I remember being just like mad as hell when I felt the message from the universe. It was time to quit my job. And I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I literally just bought a beach house. My mortgage is $3,100 a month. Like, how the fuck am I gonna, like, that's what was going through my head. I was just like, what is even, like, no, I'm not quitting my job. Um, but truly, and so for me, like, compromising on lifestyle was just like, it wasn't really an option because, like, I don't want to sell my house. Like, I just bought my house. I love my house. Like, I worked so hard to be in a place where I could enjoy the beach. But I also realized that leaving my job, part of my motivation for that is because I want to, like, walk on the beach in the middle of the day more than I could when I had a 9 to 5 and worked full time, right? It's because I do want to surf more. It's because I want to enjoy the space that I live, that I've, like, been able to acquire. And so of course I don't want to compromise on lifestyle. And I could probably list out 20 to 30 things that I was spending money on a month that I absolutely did not need to be spending money on a month, that I was just, like, doing as a distraction from what I actually wanted and needed. And so I say that, like, I 100% invite all of you sometime this week or sometime in the next 5 weeks to, like, really go through your budget and, like, all of the places. And I say this because we're not, like, trying to pinch pennies so we can quit our job. It's more to start to realize, like, where am I putting my energy that my energy doesn't need to go financially, time wise, right? Like, the people that I'm spending time with. And the budget's one place because I think all of us, it's so natural um to need a certain dollar amount before we feel comfortable, like, giving up a steady paycheck. And that's completely, like, legitimate. And that's going to echo out into, like, all other things. And so that's why I say start with the money and start with the budget, because, like, let's just be completely real. Like, the money is like the thing that we need, especially in our businesses. It's the thing that makes our business run, right? And we will definitely talk in the next 5 weeks also about all of the abundance that comes from not just our business, right? And, like, all of the ways that we receive money outside of just the work that we do. And then beginning to trust in that abundance as well, because it's literally everywhere. But I think, like, first things first, when you're evaluating leaving your job, money is important. Like, I don't want to, downplay that in any way, shape, or form. And so because of that, and then yes, you feel like you're adding so much money because terrified of taxes. So taxes is, oh man, we're gonna have a whole session on, like, taxes and back end, because it's really important to factor that in. So I would say, like, also in the thinking about what would be really nourishing for you, like, maybe that's $5,000 a month, but actually it's 8 because you're like, oh shit, I don't know what taxes are gonna look like, and insurance, and, like, all of the things that we need to factor in. It's important. And so yeah, so but again, I will echo, like, really looking at how you spend your money, where your energy comes in and where it goes out. And, like, what are you spending your money and time on that you think is necessary, that, like, maybe is an energy leak. And it's more of just the practice of what's actually required to nourish you. And, like, what do you really need to do, not just to go all in on your business, but to, like, truly go all in on you, on, like, what will really make you happy, on what will give you freedom and ease and flow and allow you to feel like you're being of service to the world, because that, again, is why we go into business. And so it's all about the money, but it's not all about the money. So yeah, so homework is just get really clear on what would nourish you financially. And then just map out one possible way to get there in the current business or businesses that you have. And so, Hannah, for you, like, if you have multiple businesses going on, I want you to think about a possible way for you to get to the amount that's nourishing for you using all of those as a channel. Not, like, individually, but saying, like, oh, if this business did, X things, and if this business did Y things, then, like, this is how I would get to my number, right? I want you to think about that. And then again, I want to, like, echo. So this is, like, all Cleo. Well, this is, like, something I want us to do, map out that one possibility. I'm not at all advocating that, like, we get stuck on that one pathway and that we become really rigid to that, because we'll talk about this literally in our next session, intuitive business, intuitive money. Rigidity is, like, not the way to success either. Like, a little bit of structure is really good because it shows us what's possible. But then letting go of that structure is actually what allows the magic to happen, right? Like, we just need to believe in ourselves first, the empowerment, the inspiration, the possibility, and then letting go of that and, like, being open to all the possibilities is what really, like, allows us to build momentum and allows things to unfold. So we'll talk about that more. And then what I want to say also is, assuming that we know our nourish number. So again, working back to quitting our jobs, assuming that we know the number that nourishes us and that feels really good and would sustain us over time in a way that would make us feel, and by that I mean nourishes us enough that we can leave our jobs so that we can then pour into our business, so that we can then pour into the spaces that we want to pour into, because that's going to bring more money. but like, what's the base, right? The base nourishment, not like bare minimum, what I need to survive, the base amount of nourishment that we need. And then once we arrive at that number or that place, or how that could be possible for us, I want you then to think about the offerings that you have and like reorganize your offerings so that they actually are in alignment with what would nourish you. And this is super, super important. Thinking even about like different levels of offerings, so like low level, mid level, high level offerings, and then literally building them out or thinking them out in terms of what would get you to that number. Because I think a lot of times we're like, oh, I need $5,000 a month. Here's one possible way to do that. Maybe it's through charging $8 for my community and having X number of people, like $10 for my community and having 500 people in my community, or whatever that thing is, right? Like we make that up. But then a couple things, we don't do anything to like really pull people into our community, and or we're focusing on like the thing that requires the most amount of energy and effort, but that has the slowest building or slowest like lowest level return. And so what I would say, especially when you're working in your 9 to 5, you don't have a lot of time, you don't have a lot of energy, and our mantras do less, make more. So you always want to focus on your highest level offers first. Like this is like, yeah, number one, like what's the highest level offer? So if you were an artist and your goal is $5,000 a month, I would be like, how can you sell one painting a month for $5,000? Like that's what I would push you toward. Whether or not you felt like you could do it, whether or not you felt like it worked, that's kind of where I would be, right? Is like, how can you focus on doing the thing that you want to do, but like really doing like the lowest effort thing that's going to bring you the highest amount of money so that you can feel nourished, so that you can focus on the other things important to the other things that come forward for you. And then like really beyond that, so like once you think about, okay, what's really nourishing, how do my offers fit into that? The question really only is like, okay, how do I get started, right? Like this is a huge thing. Swati, you said this earlier, right? Like where do I even start? I would say like, so I asked this earlier, but like what support do you actually need to quit your job, right? Like what conditions do need to exist? Being really clear and honest about that. Like maybe that is a coach, maybe that's not, maybe that's like an hour of meditation every day, maybe that's a certain amount of money. But then also being really honest with yourself on like, what do I actually need to put my offers into the world and to get my first paying customer? Because like, that's really all that this is, right? Being in business isn't like having a brand. It's not like having everything perfect. It's not like having all of these tailored things. It's not like, as an artist, it's not even like pumping out 20 paintings a month. It's like one painting that one person pays for, right? Like my friend, from work just published a book, and I like immediately was like, let me buy that. I want to buy your book. And he's like, oh, I'll send it to you for free. And I'm like, no, I want to pay for your book. Let me buy your book. And like, boom, you're like now a legitimate author and writer, right? Like not only have you published something, but like someone has now purchased your thing, right? Like that's it. Like that's all it takes. And so what do you need to do so that your stuff is out there and people are buying it? And like, it's not a back end, it's not processes, it's not a strategy, it's not your content, it's not your social media. It is probably telling people what it is that you do and then them like purchasing it, right? And telling enough people so that the right people purchase it, right? Like that's going to be a huge thing. But like really all you need to do is figure out how much money do I need to make? And then truly, what do I need to do to make that money? And by that, I say like, what moves the actual needle? It's probably not posting on Instagram. Although for some people it is posting on Instagram. So I don't want to say that for everyone, but I'm saying that now because I did have a couple of you guys fill out the form and say, like, how do I do this without social media? And I'm like, you don't have to have social media, right? Like social media is a free marketing platform. It's not the only marketing platform. Like there are so many different ways to do it. So it's figuring out like, how much money do I need to make? How do I get my offers into the world? How do I get people to buy my offers? And then what do I actually need to do to make that happen? And then literally letting everything else go. Because I think oftentimes what we do, especially when we're newer in business, is one, we want to do it all right. We want to get it all right. Everything has to be perfect. Everything needs to look really well. We want to feel like super legitimate. We want other people to feel like we're super legitimate. And so we put all of this time and energy and effort into something that's not giving us a return. I'm not saying that these are bad things to invest in, by the way. If you have the time and you have the money, like 100% invest in your business, invest in yourself, invest in your brand. 100%, because these are all things that like might not give you ROI immediately, but down the road will. However, if you don't have the time and the money and you're working a 9 to 5 and you're low on energy, focusing on the things that are going to bring you the money is going to be the best thing to nourish you, because you can always build the other stuff later as you have the time and the energy, right? Like those are not the things that ultimately move the needle. And so I would say, like, what moves the needle and how can you focus on just that in the very beginning? And just like, you're closer than you think, you guys. I have so much more to say. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's 7:21. Like, there's so much more. Yeah, so I'm going to pause for a second or like pivot for just a second, because I think what I really, really want to drive home is, like, as you begin to really align yourself to what's nourishing to you, and then allowing yourself to work on that and to really let go of anything that's not moving the needle, this is truly where you're going to build and begin to build momentum. As I was talking to Rita and Soul yesterday, Rita mentioned the word inertia, and we were talking about this in terms of a course that we're creating actually on starting and running a spiritual business, and like all of the components of just like that space. And the word inertia came forward. And what's funny is, like, what do you guys think of when you think of the word inertia? I'm curious, because this blew my mind. Oh, outer space. Oh, I like that. I had to look it up. Oh, this is so good. Okay, so then, Kira, do not say anything since you looked it up. I'm just going to tell you guys. Flashbacks to physics class. Oh, I love this. You guys, oh my gosh. I'm doing that right now. So, like, you don't even have to look it up. I will tell you. Whenever I heard the word inertia and we talked about it, and like the three of us, and then I was even just talking to Emerson about it maybe earlier today or yesterday, what came to me was momentum. Like, that's the word that came forward: momentum and forward movement. When I looked up synonyms to inertia, because we were trying to think about like a brand name for the work that we're doing, the synonyms that came forward were like inactivity, apathy, not moving, sluggishness. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that's not what I thought about when I thought inertia, right? You're perfect, Kira, by the way. But inertia, it means, the definition of it is inactivity. It's a tendency to do nothing or to remain unchanged. And the physics definition for the flashbacks to physics class is a property of matter by which it continues in its existing state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line, unless that state is changed by an external force. And so this blew my mind, because I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I want to drive home in the quantum leap, but also in anything and everything business and spiritual business related, or just life related, is how can you get to a place of, and I'm telling you how, and we'll talk so much more about how in the next 5 weeks, of inertia, which means like not doing anything at all, but having your business move for you. Like, that's ultimately what we all want, right? Like, it's not even necessarily about the money, but it's like the freedom for us to be and do as we want. And this is really, really difficult for multiple reasons. Like, we're self-sabotaging in all of these different ways. One, by like trying to be perfect, not putting our stuff out into the world because we're afraid it's like not going to be accepted, right? Also, not working toward goals because we don't necessarily have goals, because, oh shit, if we have a number in our mind of what would be really nourishing, and then we're already making that number, and then we've got to quit our jobs, which is scary. It doesn't make it less scary, right? Like, we're not actually going to be more calm about it. We're going to be like, oh my God, now I have to follow through with what I said, because like I know that I'm where I'm supposed to be, which is scary in its own way. But then there's also this like, yeah, like the guilt that JC was saying too, of like getting and doing the things that we really want to do because it's available and accessible to us. Especially like coming to a place of inertia where you're not doing anything, but you're still making money, or you're not doing anything, but it's still effortless and easeful, and you're still getting the things that you want, right? So what we want to focus on in the next 5 weeks is just like, what are the things that we can do to like build that up so that we can just step away. And like, it's not going to be really easy leaving your job, and it's not going to, and by that, I mean, like, it can be easeful and that you might not do anything, but like the work that happens internally is uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to have what we want and get what we want and not make any moves, but like see money come in, right? Like the guilt that I feel, like in the last 6 weeks, you guys, the guilt that I felt when like people are like, hey, I want to work with you. And I'm like, oh, I'm literally doing nothing right now. Like, why do you want to work with me? Like that thought went through my head. I was just like, oh, should I even be doing this? Like, I'm literally like driving down the road right now with no service or Wi-Fi. Like I'm like absolutely not pouring into my business right now. I'm absolutely not pouring into anything that feels of value. And yet like things are still moving on their own. And so like that's really where I want everyone to be and feel. And that's why I'm like, don't put your 2 weeks in yet, because I feel like you can get to a place, like we all can get to a place where not only are you sustaining yourself, but you're sustaining yourself in the state of inertia, in a moment of inertia where you're not putting forth that much effort, but things are still happening and things are still going, so that you can focus on all the things that you want. Because like that's why we come into business, right? It's like that freedom. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna say one more thing and then I'm gonna pause for questions. I do want to say, I know we didn't talk a lot about the 9 to 5 itself. Part of this, by the way, is because um, my method for like changing my diet and or like moving into more of what I want so the rest of the stuff falls off is kind of the same thing that is happening here and now, right? Like we're going to talk about the things to focus on, so the other things are going to drop off, but we will talk a lot more about the 9 to 5 and allowing ourselves to be authentic in the workplace, because that's also going to help us energize for the things that we're doing outside of the workplace. So like when we think about not having a lot of energy outside of work to do the things that we want, there is this mantra of do less, make more. And then there's also this, how can I use what I have to my fullest advantage so that I can do the things that I want and I am energized? And like, where is my energy being leaked out? And how can I call that back in? And a lot of that actually comes from, how do you be your full self at work and like do the work that you enjoy at work so that you're still energized when you leave your work, right? How do we work with what we have so that we can get what we want? That's like the whole art, I think, of really living and living well in this world, is just figuring out, okay, creatively, how can I take what I have and like transform that into the thing that I want? And then when you get really good at that, you can do whatever you want, like period, anytime, anywhere, right? Like it's all gonna, like you'll be able to start integrating that. But I'm gonna pause really quick and just see like what questions you have, and then I'm also gonna share my screen again to kind of talk through some tips. And if anyone has to drop, I know we're like almost at time, so I totally understand. I still have time. I'm sorry for taking us over. I'm like, oh, there's still so much, but we have a lot of time to cover more things, so it's okay. So I'm going to pause. Feel free to drop in the chat or just to come off mute. And oh, I love this so much. Oh, the Arabic phrase. Do you know how to say that? Like pronounce it out loud?
Yeah, I think it's kun faya kun.
Kun faya kun. Oh, it's beautiful. It means be and it is. That sounds exactly like inertia. And I think I might add that to our list of mantras for the next 5 weeks. Yeah. Do less, make more, and kun faya kun. Be and it is. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to run through this list of tips then for a moment, but feel free to unmute and ask things. And this is just like me writing out my notes earlier, and then I just slap them in here. Invest in your business and yourself if you can. You guys are all doing that because you guys are all here now. And I know all of you are investing in other ways in yourself, just because I know most of you guys and or like see your habits. And so and I say this, but I want to say, like, I want to add the caveat of do this wisely, right? Like just throwing money at your business isn't going to make it successful, and just throwing money into yourself is not going to make you successful, right? Like at some point, like we have to do some sort of work, and it's not just like, oops, I didn't mean to do that. It's not just like throwing money at something. However, anytime we invest, and by invest, I don't even mean money. It's like go all in on in terms of time, energy, effort, right? Like as much as you can, take time back for yourself, as much as you can, give back to your business. And then I would say, if possible, for your 9 to 5s, and because you guys are all in 9 to 5s, I think this is probably possible. I'm making this assumption, which might be dangerous. Bootstrap. That's going to get you to a place of being so much more comfortable leaving your jobs than anything else will. And by that, I mean every cent that you earn goes right back into your business, not into your pocket. This is going to help you be okay with taxes, by the way. You'll feel a lot more comfortable because you're gonna be like, well, I have a bunch of money now that I can just like pay a percentage of to my taxes. But then that will help you for the next year. But I say this too, because even if you just throw everything into a business account, or even if you, every cent that you make, you take back and you get a photo shoot, or you take back and you use for marketing, or you like put into ads or whatever that thing is, you will tangibly see the momentum building, because you're not just like adding it to your normal budget, and you're not just like letting it leak out into your day to day, right? Like if you want your business to sustain you, you need to fully understand how much money are you actually bringing in through your business, and like how much money does your business actually require? Like that is a very tangible, important thing that will help you feel, again, you don't need to do it, but it's going to help you feel safe. And like the whole point in this is like feeling safe and nourished, and you'll feel more safe and nourished when you can like tangibly track all of the money and like how everything flows and what's actually required and what's not required. And again, you'll see the momentum building, and that's inspiring. That'll keep you moving. That was a huge thing for me with TCP. I didn't perfectly follow this, but it will help make you move a lot quicker. And then you'll also feel better, because like one of my favorite moments with TCP is in the beginning, watching things come out of my personal account to pay for like my photo shoot, to pay for like my branding, to pay for coaching, to pay for the software that I was using, to pay for like the booking tools, but then being able to shift that all to my business account, and for me not to ever even think anymore about the money that's coming out to pay for the tools that I need for my job, or to pay for Jess to do my media management, or Kate to do my business management. Like it all comes from my business account, and like I should be better about accounting and where my energy is going, as I'm advising you guys too, but I don't have to look at it anymore. And that's so inspiring to me as well, because I'm like, oh, I'm not paying for this now, right? Like it's its own sustaining thing, and I get to get paid from it, which is pretty cool. And so it will inspire you to keep going, even just making that transition from I've now invested, and we're going to talk about this in a later thing. So like anything like the quantum leap, even anything that you do for your business, whether you've started an LLC or not, like up until you start an LLC, that's like coaching, that's development, that's consulting, that's like software that you try, that's buying a computer, all of that's write-offable on your taxes. And those are like startup costs. I learned this in my last year whenever I did my taxes. So take note of that, because you'll write all it, like even this course, like you'll be able to write off. And so know that, and then watch again as that shifts from your personal account to your business account. That's going to make you feel just so good. And again, it's going to just like, that's part of building the momentum and staying in the energy. Another thing I would say is experiment with your rates and your offerings. Make it really fun. I said this before multiple times. I'm going to say it again multiple times. We become entrepreneurs for freedom, ease, play, fun, not for our businesses to become jobs, right? So allow yourself room for play. Allow yourself room for experimentation. Know that it doesn't all have to be one way. Know that it doesn't have to be set in stone. Know that it's okay if you charge someone $300 and then you're like, shit, actually, I want my rates to be $225. Like if you feel like you want to give someone $75 back, great. But if not, great. Like your rates were that then, they're this now. And then if you change it again tomorrow, it's your business. You can do what you want. That's also why we go into business, right? So like know that it doesn't have to be perfect. Biggest tip for all of you guys, especially anyone who's like starting spiritual or energy healing stuff, charge for your work. I know that there are potentially some of you on this call, but definitely some people that have signed up for this who are doing the work already, but offering your services for free, especially for friends and family. Stop doing that. I'm going to say like my number one, if there's anything you get from the quantum leap, like when you leave and then in the 5 weeks is, if you're giving anything away for free to your friends and family, I don't want you to do that anymore. Your friends and your family are your number one biggest supporters. They're the first people that should pay you full price for your work, period. If they want to support you, they've got to pay you. This is something that one of my friends told to me, who she's an independent contractor, and she's like an amazing anesthetician. Like I would pay hundreds of dollars to see her. And I used to get her like friends and family discount. She could give it to 2 people, and I was one of those 2 people. And I think it was because at the time I just like didn't have a lot of money, right? And she was like, oh, I know you're going to come and you're like a really loyal person. You're always here. But we had this conversation and she's like, no, I don't give anyone discounts. And I don't like it when people ask me for discounts. And I thought about this. My cousin owned a restaurant for a while, and like everybody, he grew up here, so everybody knew him. So of course everybody went to his restaurant and wanted a discount and like thought they like knew someone and it'd be really cool and nice. But he used to get so upset, and he would be like, no, if you want my restaurant to survive, you have to pay. You have to pay to eat. And it's so hard because we want to give our stuff away for free. One, because we want people to get excited about it. Two, because a lot of times we'll have a client or a friend or a family member who we know would greatly benefit from our work, but like don't want to invest in it. They're not going to benefit from your work if they don't want to invest in it, period. Like that is just that. Like the benefits, if you give it away for free and somebody doesn't actually want or need it, and like you give it to them and it's like, it's not that they really want it and they couldn't afford it, but like you just know that it would be good for them, it's not going to be good for them. They're not going to get the full impact of it, right? And then the other thing is, why on earth would anyone recommend you or try to pay for you or try to invest in your services if you're literally giving it to them for free? People say this about social media. I actually disagree with this. I think give away whatever you want for free on social media. Tell all of your secrets on social media. Tell all of your practices and your processes. Don't hold anything back, because the thing that makes your work good is actually you. It's not the knowledge that you have. So share your knowledge freely. Share it as much as you want to, but do not give your time away for free ever, unless you like genuinely from the bottom of your heart desire to do that and it would feel really nourishing for you. Because like you're the thing that makes it all work. So that's like, if there's anything that you guys take away, I want it to be that. That's like number one, just start charging for it. And then I said this already, but social media is not your only way to market for your business. So for those of you who are like, I really, really don't want to be on Instagram all the time and like making all of these story posts and like posts and captions and talking to people and engaging with people, you don't have to do that. What's really beautiful, I was talking to Soul with Dawning Digital, and I think Soul has like, I don't know, 40,000 followers or something on Instagram. Her business, I don't know, like maybe 10 or 12,000, probably a lot more than that now. I haven't looked in quite a while. But when I was talking to her, she said over 90% of her business comes from not social media. And she said that, and she does really, really well. And it's amazing because she's also someone that doesn't talk about how, I don't even want to like share too much because I'm like, oh, this is not my space to necessarily share on behalf of her, but she doesn't share how much money she makes online at all. And sometimes we talk about it, she's like, I don't know if I should or not, or if I feel guilty, but it's just not a thing she does. And she doesn't bring people in like that. She brings people in through the work that she delivers. And then also through like so many other channels of marketing, like on Google and like using SEO on her website. And like, she's a super expert and pro in this area. But again, the majority of her clients do not come from social media. And then she doesn't even advertise any of the work that she does on social media, her content, her programs, her branding. It's just like not a thing. Her social media accounts are literally, she gives out free stuff, and that's like what they do. And it's part of their strategy. And so I would say, if you're like, oh, I really want to work on my energy business, but I don't want to be a social media influencer, I say you don't have to be a social media influencer. There are so many other ways to bring in money and generate clients. And like, we can talk about those. But I encourage you guys to get really creative and look into that, because you don't have to do that. And yeah, you just don't have to do that. So just know that that doesn't have to be a thing if you don't want it to be a thing. And then the last like huge thing that I'll say is, whatever you're most scared to do, this was in response to like some of you guys' forms, by the way. That's the thing you need to do the most. So if you guys are, maybe started a business, or like maybe thinking about starting a business, or maybe you have multiple businesses, whatever you're most scared to share, that's the thing I challenge you to focus on for the next 5 weeks. That's the thing that you need to share the most. And I would actually even say, like, give your life a really good look over. And it's actually not the thing that you're not doing at all. It's probably the thing that you're half doing. It's probably the thing that like you're doing just enough that you can tell your soul, I'm doing this. And so because I'm doing this, I'm going to focus on this other thing for my business, because I don't care as much if I fail on this other thing. And like that other thing's actually not as important to me. So an example would be like, let's say you're maybe a musician and you don't want to go all in on your music, but you are still producing music and you're making enough music and you're getting enough like traction or views that you feel okay about it. And instead you're starting a business on like, to, I don't know, read tarot, for example, right? Probably the thing that you should actually do is go all in on your music business. Go all in on the thing that makes your heart pound. Go all in on the thing that makes you feel really scared. Not in a way that feels unsafe, right? Like, as we talked about safety is important. And so maybe that's like you find a way to sustain yourself financially through a different business or avenue, but then you focus your time and energy on your music, right? Whatever that thing is. So if you're struggling in your business or figuring out what you want to do, look at the things in your life that you're halfway nurturing or that you're nurturing just a little bit, and then lean into those things, because probably that's like where you're going to make the most impact and be of the biggest service to the world. Okay, now I'm really gonna pause and see what questions you guys have. Like, what's coming up? How's everything landing in your bodies? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling a little bit amazed that like I have my notes, but I created like a little column on the side because as soon as we got started, I already started getting hits, and I'm really surprised with the stuff that has come through. And I think that it's just like the tip of the iceberg for the next 5 weeks.
Yay.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'm feeling excited. This is
Yay!
so good.
Yay! I'm feeling so excited too. I'm like, I knew this as I was pulling everything together. I was like, I have too much to say in like one session. So, which might happen for all of the sessions, by the way. And speaking of that, I do want to say, I'm going to send you guys an email and invite everyone to the actual course itself, the Quantum Leap. It's going to look very empty because it's going to fill out as we go. But all of the events are there. And then what's going to happen is every single week. So there's going to be, I think it's like 3 sessions a week. No pressure on showing up to all 3 of them. Everything will be recorded. Show up to as much as you can though, by the way, because that's where the meat is, right? And then come with questions. So this particular one is like really packed with content. The rest of it, I'm going to try to be a lot easier and lax on content so that we can really focus on like the things that you guys are working on specifically. So like the things that are really like, I'm struggling here, I'm stuck here, this thing happened at work, or this thing's going on in my business. Like I really want to have time and space for that. But just stay tuned because you guys will all get invites to the course itself. It's in community.thecorporatepsychic.com. You'll see it on your course list in just a couple of, let's say like by midday tomorrow, because I say I'll do it tonight, but I may or may not actually get every single person in tonight, just to be fully transparent. And then you'll find all your course content here, session recordings, events will all be here. Any like additional resourcing will go in there. So like I'll put all of my notes that I spoke from today in there so that you have it. And then I'll put like exercises for you guys to do if you want to do them in there. And then all session dates and times are going to be in your events tab in the course itself. But I think I saw Kate send out calendar invites today as well from Hello at the Corp Psychic for all of the rest of the sessions. So know that you have those too. They're in both places. And then if you're ever confused, this is in every single thing. I'll also have it in the course overview, but all sessions except for this one will have the same exact Zoom link. So like you'll always be able to reference the same Zoom link. The password's always going to be quantum with a capital Q. Every single week, I'm going to ask you guys if you have any questions. I'll either answer them live in our sessions or to the groups in WhatsApp or the activity feed of the course, or maybe all 3 of those, depending on what the question is and if it's like something that seems applicable to everyone. Don't hesitate to reach out to myself or to Kate directly for like questions, support, something that you don't want to share with the group, like literally anything and everything. And then the way that we have the sessions scheduled are Tuesdays and Thursdays always, and then alternating between Wednesdays and Fridays as well. So some weeks will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Some weeks will be Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. I think next week sessions are all like at noon Eastern Standard Time, so like lunchtime-ish. And then the week after, they're all like at 6 p.m. So it kind of goes back and forth just to accommodate you guys, and then just me as well. And so like come to as much as you can. No worries if you can't. And then the other thing is stay on the lookout for, I'm going to create a big WhatsApp group. So if you haven't sent me your phone number, send it to me. If you don't feel comfortable, totally fine. And then I'm also going to create just like small pods for you guys to just connect a little bit more deeply. And then I'll be in those pods every single week. So I'm going to be in your pod with you. So feel free once you're in your pod to like create a chat without me. I don't have to be involved, but I will be in your pod so that I can answer questions a little bit more intimately so that I can support you guys. And then I'll also be prompting you guys just weekly on whatever's coming up or whatever questions are happening from other people or just anything and everything that I can share, because there's just so much to share, and obviously 75 to 90 minutes is not always going to cut it. So I'm sure I'll be all over the place. And I think that that's it. So now I will say for real, like any questions on the course, any questions on logistics, any questions on content, any burning questions or desires to think about in the next 5 weeks, anything that you just want to share, I'm here for it.
I just want to say thank you. It was also so nice to meet everybody in here. I'm so excited for this and to connect more. And happy birthday. Thank you so much for this. I'm just like buzzing, so excited.
Yay. Thank you so much, JC. I love you. Okay, amazing. So I'm just going to sit here for the next like 30 to 45 seconds quietly. So feel free to stay or drop, but I'm just going to stay in case anything kind of comes up or arises for any of you. Also, Swati, I saw your comment. It's so nice. I'm so excited for all the light bulb moments. You're so welcome, Jenny. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. And then actually, while you guys are all here and since everyone's quiet, let's just have like a collective end together then. So if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. Take a couple of deep breaths. Make your chest just as broad as your back. Draw the crown of your head toward the sky. Maybe even place a hand on your heart. Maybe feel your heart beating with your hand. Notice your breath as it comes in and out of your body. And just take a moment to offer yourself gratitude for showing up today, whether that's physically now or whether that's through the recording. And silently offer gratitude to every single person who's here or maybe even listening, for contributing to the energy into the space, making all of this possible. And then we'll take a deep inhale together. Full exhale. Thank you all so much for showing up. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up for yourselves. I'm just like honoring you guys so, so much. I'm so excited for like every single session in the next 4 or 5 weeks. I think it's 5 more weeks. And then just know that I'm here if you guys have questions, if you have suggestions. I'll send out all of the session details for you guys as well. And then the last session right now is TBD, but I'm so open to like bonus sessions or extra sessions if we need them. So if there's like a topic or request that you have that you're like, oh, I really want to talk about this, or I want us all to dive into this, let me know. Like, don't hesitate to send that out. And I'm happy to throw that in as well. Or in the very least, like throw it into our chats as we get connected on WhatsApp. Thank you so much, sweet ones. I hope that you have the most amazing rest of your day, night, mornings. And well, I think I'll see you guys all on Tuesday. Yeah. Cool. Stay tuned for emails and we'll talk probably tomorrow. Bye, everyone.